Growing up in an evangelical fundamentalist home and culture may have served me well in terms of strict religious development and safety, but it was like a prison of religious thought with authoritarianism in the tower. I grew up reading the Bible, praying, going to church 5 or more times per week as a Baptist pastor's son, and because of the fundamentalist frame of reference, I was never to question. Indeed, I was told my family and faith were God's will. To resist that was to rebel against God himself. So my siblings and I bent to that doctrine. We lived socially isolated for an American family in the 1970s. No watching television, no making contacts except through church, no playing Little League or other community sports, no public schools if we could help it. Homeschooling was still in its infancy. What I did not realize as a child was that this isolation was not only social but intellectual. Dialogue itself was unsettling to the fundamentalist mind because truth was framed as certainty, not conversation. If God's truth was already fully revealed and handed down in Scripture, then questioning, listening to other perspectives, or even entertaining dialogue was not growth, it was disobedience. Within this system, family members felt obliged to proclaim their faith, but any attempt to share a different perspective was cast as dangerous, even spiritually threatening. Looking back, I can see how this shaped the culture around me. Fundamentalism was more than a set of personal beliefs. It was a fortress mentality. Proclamation was the only acceptable form of speech because it defended the walls. Dialogue, however, opened the gates to doubt, relativism, or worse, rebellion. This is why my childhood felt both safe and suffocating. There was clarity and order, but at the cost of freedom and curiosity. By the time I reached my 20s, I began to resist, not from a desire to abandon faith, but from a desire to find a faith that could breathe. I asked myself, if God is love, why is questioning treated as betrayal? If Jesus welcomed dialogue with sinners, outsiders, and opponents alike, why did my own community fear listening? My break from fundamentalism was not a rejection of God, but of a system that reduced faith to fear and obedience. That resistance began a slow journey away from authoritarian religion and toward a Catholic vision shaped by justice, compassion, and inclusion. One that sees dialogue not as danger, but as a way the Spirit continues to move in the world. Looking back, I can now see that what once felt like a prison of rigid doctrine prepared me to hunger for something larger than fear and certainty. That hunger eventually drew me to Catholicism, not because it erases questions, but because it welcomes them. In Catholic social teaching, I discovered a vision of faith rooted in inclusion, justice, and compassion, where dialogue is not seen as dangerous but as essential to discerning God's presence in the world. Here, faith is not a fortress, but a table, open to saints and sinners, the strong and the weak, the native and the immigrant alike. I am grateful to belong to a tradition that allows me to wrestle with God and neighbor honestly, trusting that love, not authoritarian control, is the truest mark of the gospel.